Hello friends, myself Jainul Musani. Today we are going to see JDBC connectivity in Java. Normally Java do not have any inbuilt database, but Java allow us to connect with any kind of database using some different kind of classes and APIs. That is called JDBC, Java Database Connectivity. During this session we will see these are the points which you can see on the screen. What is JDBC? General architecture of JDBC, different components of JDBC API, different JDBC drivers, different type of drivers of JDBC. To connect with the JDBC, we are using several interfaces and classes. We'll see what are the different classes and interfaces we require to connect with the database through the JDBC. Then, for one example, we'll see the connection or connectivity steps starting from to register drivers to execute the queries. During this example, I'll consider that my database is of MySQL. You can connect your database, your Java application with any kind of database, maybe Oracle, MySQL, other different type of database available in the market. For each type of database, you need some different kind of drivers. Fine. So let me see one by one. What is JDBC? To connect Java application with database, we require JDBC. JDBC is a collection of APIs and classes which allow Java application to interact with the database. JDBC is a part of J2EE. JDBC API uses JDBC drivers to connect your application with the database. This is the first level of the diagram where you can see where the JDBC driver lies. At the top, the Java application. Under the Java application and between database and Java application, there is a layer of JDBC driver. So here the JDBC driver works as a middle part of the Java application and database. The more clear diagram you can see here with the database connectivity of Java. Java can have desktop application, maybe some kind of servlets, maybe some kind of applets. Your servlet, desktop application and other Java application interact with JDBC APIs. JDBC API is a part of Java JDBC driver manager, and the driver manager interact with the different type of databases. So for different type of databases, there are different kind of driver managers. Here again, one another diagram through which we can try to understand how your Java application works with your database. So normally when you install JDBC, your Java application uses the class and interfaces to interact with the database, where your APIs are directly interact with your JDBC drivers, and JDBC driver connect with the database and passing the messages data from application to the database. There are few components which we are going to use in our this entire operation of application connection with the database. Mainly these all components like drivers, interfaces and classes available in one library that is called java.sql. So java.sql package is responsible to provide this all kind of drivers, interface and classes which we are using to connect our application with the database. Mainly there are four type of drivers available. It is called type 1, type 2, type 3 and type 4 drivers, but mainly the name of the drivers are JDBC ODBC bridge, native driver, network protocol driver and thread driver. For different kind of database, we have these drivers to connect with. What are the different interfaces which we are going to use to connect our database with the Java? Driver interface, connection interface, statement interface, prepaid statement interface, callable interface, result set interface, result set metadata interface, database metadata interface, and row set. So these are the mainly 9 interfaces available in the java.sql library, which will provide us the connection between database. The classes, mainly there are 4 classes: driver manager class, blob class, clob class, types class. 4 main classes. Now let me try to understand what is the first driver type. First driver type is JDBC ODBC bridge driver. So mainly this JDBC ODBC bridge driver is lying at the server side with the database. So the main part of the JDBC ODBC driver, bridge driver, is we need to install the appropriate ODBC driver at the database side, and JDBC ODBC bridge for each type of database we need to install at the client machine. It means as many type of databases we are supposed to connect with our application, that many ODBC, JDBC ODBC driver we need to install at client side, and each database will provide ODBC driver and its library for different type of routines. So this is the communication, how this communication can be performed between Java application and your database. Second type of driver is native API drivers. Native API drivers is not fully written in the Java, but partly written in the Java. Mainly it is upgraded version of the JDBC ODBC bridge. First of all, disadvantage of this driver is we need to install the API at the client side also, and the API will of the appropriate data type will be interact with the database library of the appropriate database. Here, if suppose if I am talking about the MySQL, so MySQL native API will be installed at the client side. So again, there is a one question that every client should have that particular driver to interact with MySQL database. The third type of driver is network protocol driver. Network protocol driver is again fully written in the Java, but some middleware is installed here between your Java application environment and the database environment. Middleware will be installed at the server side, which will take care of these calls comes from the Java applications, and it will interpret it and interact with the database. Mainly, this is again one disadvantage of this middle network protocol is you need to install at the client side also. So as many database your application, Java application will interact, that many client machines we have to install on each client machine. So network protocol drivers we have to install in each client machine. The third one is JDBC driver is thin driver. Thin driver is a completely written in the Java. The main advantage of this thin driver is there is no any intermediate interface required. Directly it will take the calls of JDBC API and convert it into the database call. So no again any software required to be installed at the client side or not any server side. So nowadays most of the database connectivity we are using this type 4 driver, that is a thin driver. Now let me go to the practical side, how we can use this JDBC in our code so that our application can be connect with our database and perform some SQL queries, retrieve the data from the database, and perform the query like insert, update, delete in the database. First of all, we need some specific type of driver class to register our driver with the application. Another one, once our driver is registered with our application, we need to create connection object. So for that, we need some kind of class and interfaces that we will see in the next part of this slide. Then some create statement. So all type of SQL statement can be performed or can be executed, can be fired with the help of statement interface. Then some specific type of methods which says execute. So different type of execute methods available which allows query to execute at the database, and any particular method retrieving the data, so that data could be stored in some kind of result set. Once we complete all the operations of either sending the data to the database or retrieving the data from the database, once we complete all these operations, we need to close the connection. So there is some close method we need to apply when we complete our all the operations. So these are the some of the steps we need to remember when we are performing database connectivity. Now, suppose for the example we take two databases, one may be Oracle, one may be MySQL. For these two databases, we need to download their drivers, and the drivers we need to install in our library from where we are executing our Java application. For Oracle, the driver name OJDBC 14.jar, and for MySQL connector.jar. These two jar file we need to install, any of the jar file we need to install the way we wanted to connect with our appropriate database. Suppose if I wanted to connect with Oracle, I need to download this jar file of the Oracle, and if I wanted to connect with MySQL, I need appropriate jar file of the MySQL. From where I can get this all SQL database, jar files. So if you can see at the bottom of the slide, there is one path, sopui.org, where you can get all these jar files. From there you can download. There are a lot of other resources available on the net nowadays, so that you can download from anywhere this jar files. So these jar files available with all type of drivers and the classes and interfaces. Now the very first step when we are starting our application with the database, so we need to register appropriate database driver with our application. The name of the method is forName. ForName is the method which is available in the class to register the database driver with our application. ForName has the syntax below, public static void forName, and in bracket some string class name, throws class not found exception. Now you note it down that forName is the method is of type checked exception. Checked exception means whenever you are supposed to use this method, you need to use your exception handling. Means wherever you are using this method, it should be enclosed with the try and catch block. Catch block must have the class not found exception catch. Otherwise, your program will give compilation time error if you do not enclose this method in the try catch block. For both this database, I have just written here the driver how to register. For Oracle, the driver name is oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle-driver. Make sure that the spelling is a case sensitive. Whatever the string what you have written is a case sensitive. So Oracle driver is O capital and D capital. You have to make very much specific this. Otherwise, it will not work and throw some exception while you are trying to connect your Java application with your database. For MySQL, the driver name is com.mysql.jdbc.driver. How to write in our program? Wherever we are using my main application, in the application, I can write class.forName and the application database driver catch. As I said that forName is a checked exception, so you must have to enclose in the try catch block. Once you register your driver with your application, the next step is you need to create one connection object. Connection object you can create with the help of driver manager class. In driver manager class, there is a method get connection. Get connection method will create one object of type connection. What is the syntax of get connection? Public static connection, get connection in bracket, some string argument, throws SQL exception. Again, the way for name is checked exception, the get connection is also checked exception. So whenever you are using get connection method, you need to enclose in the try catch block, or in the other case, you need to report it at the method level using throws. Fine. Another syntax with the three parameters: string URL, string name, string password. So if your database has username and password, so with the URL of your database, you need to pass the username and password when you are creating the connection object. This is how we can write the entire code. First, we create the connection object. In the try block, we use connection driver manager dot connection connection string. Again, this connection string you can get it from any website, connectionstrings.com. So wherever you are using, you just Google it and get the connection strings from the connectionstrings.com. Here localhost and 3306 port number is your database domain name from where you are accessing your database. For the example, my database is also available in my own computer, so localhost will be the main IP address or whatever my localhost current system on which my database is available. And for MySQL, default port is 3306. So according to your database, you can identify the URL as well as your port number and you can use it. My database name, I have created JDBC demo database. So JDBC demo database is used here to connect my application with my database. My MySQL database's username is root and the password is password only. So which I have kept it as it is in my connection string. Once I get the connection, if it is successful, I will get some message system.out.println and connection is successful message. Suppose at any particular time my database is not available, my database is down, or some spell mistake in my database name, or maybe the port number is not available, this 3306, somewhat any problem is there, it will raise some exception and my exception will give me the message that connection is not successfully done. So I need to rectify it and make it correct. Third step is once we register our driver, then we have created the connection, then we need to start interacting with the database. And for that, we need to fire some kind of SQL statement like select statement, insert statement, delete statement, update statement, all any kind of SQL I wanted to emit on the database. And for that, I need to create one another reference is of type statement. Statement is an interface which will create one object. How to create object? Let me see here. So again, I have repeated this three statement here in the starting from the register my driver class.forName, com.mysql.jdbc driver, then creating the connection object driver manager.get connection that will connect my database with my application. So now onwards, whenever I wanted to refer my database, I will use the connection object. Then to create the statement on the connection object, I will use connection.create statement. So connection.create statement will create one statement reference. So after that, using the statement, I can fire any SQL statement over my database. So for demonstration purpose, I have used my employee database. For different examples I am taking, maybe sometimes I use employee database table, sometimes I use student database table. Statement.execute. So this execute method is responsible to fire any SQL statement on my table. So here I am taking insert query. Insert into employee and the list of all the columns or fields of my table employee, employee ID, first name, last name, and stat code. And values the way we are using the SQL statement. I am considering that you are very well aware about the SQL statement, structured query language of any type like MySQL, Oracle, anything. So here the execute statement will execute the insert query on my database. Fine. Here the same way. Once I have completed my task, what I did is I registered my driver of the database, then I create the connection object, I created the statement and fire the statement SQL query using the statement.execute method. My task is complete. No further need of my database connectivity with my application. So what I will do is I will go and use the close statement to close my database. But I will not only close the connection, but I need to close the statement also. So what we need is statement.close and connection.close. Definitely, I have used this in the finally block. So if you are aware about the exception handling, the finally block will always execute once the entire process is completed. So as I completed my database operation in my application, then finally block will be executed. And that finally block will first take this statement.close and then it will take connection.close. So don't make mistake that first you close the connection and then you close the statement. So the sequence is very much important. The another example. So the previous example was we are sending data from our application to the database table. Now we wanted to retrieve some data from the table to our application and we want to process that data for some kind of preparing the list through the application. So how to retrieve data from database table into our application? For that we need one another interface, that is result set. So we need to create result set. So my statement will help me to create the connection with a specific table, and execute query is another method of this statement which will allow to perform select query on my table. So here the student table is used. So all the columns which we require to retrieve from the table like student ID, student name, subjects, marks, from the student table I have fetch for a specific range of student. So here what I need is I am accessing multiple rows of the student table, multiple records of the more than one records. So once the more than one records is stored in the result set arrays, I wanted to process this result set arrays one by one record. For that, I need some kind of looping structure. So while is the best loop to perform this kind of operation? So whenever I wanted to retrieve one record from the result set, I will perform rs.next. rs.next will give me one by one result set, or I can say the rs record pointer will be moved from one record to the next record, record to the next record using rs.next until it will reach up to the end of the file. So rs.next will perform true or false. If the record is exist in the table, it will retrieve and the record pointer will go to the record point on a particular record. Suppose all the records is fetched and now the end of the file encounter, at that time rs.next will become false and your loop will stop. So once at the first attempt when you are performing the select query execute, then the record pointer will be at the beginning of the file. Fine. And once you say rs.next, from the beginning of the file, it will come to the first record of the file. Using now rs, you can retrieve one by one all the fields of that first record. So rs.getString1, it will refer to the first column of the record. rs.getString2 will refer the second column of the. Likewise, you can access your one record individually one by one field like student ID, student name, subject and marks. Now, there is another statement, that is prepare statement. Apart from statement, there is another statement, prepare statement. So multiple time if you wanted to perform any operation like insert queries with the different values, then you can use the prepare statement. So in the prepare statement, you create the prepare statement reference, you create the SQL query, insert into students, then number of columns which you wanted to perform in the insert, then values. Now instead of giving the static value, constant value, you are making question mark as a reference of that value. Fine. And then you create the prepare statement like connection.prepare statement SQL. So what now it will do, whenever you execute the prepare statement, it will ask some values for each of these field: student ID, student name, subject, and marks. How? See, prepare statement dot set. Here the set statement, you need to very much clear about the columns and its data type. If first column has the integer data, numeric data, then the set must be set int. 1 is the column number 1, and the 87 is the value which will be replaced at the question mark, respective question mark. There are 4 question mark here in the values, means it will refer first, 1 will refer the first question mark, 2 will refer the second question mark, 3 will refer the third question mark, and 4 will refer the fourth question mark. And replacing this value 87, this Lokesh, Gupta, and 5 with the respective position of this question mark. And at the end, you will say execute update. Prepare statement dot execute update. That will simply execute the insert query with the new values, and it will insert a new record. In place of insert, if you have used some kind of update query, the number of rows will be here counted. So prepare statement will give you the return how many number of rows it has affected. Suppose there is insert query, definitely there will be 1. But suppose there is an update query, and update query affect more than 1 rows, then how many rows your execute update has affected, that numbers will be here in the integer affected rows, so that you will get the idea or the feedback that how many rows are updated. For insert query, there is only 1 row. Fine. So this is about the print statement. So here I'm completing my this session of the JDBC connectivity. Hope you understood very well this entire process of your Java application, how it connects, and there are different other parameters and syntaxes also there. In the next session, we will more elaborate this JDBC connectivity with the practical application and demonstrating that how with the database we can connect and transfer the data from application to database and database table to application. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.